Admiral Taeho Lee stood on the bridge of the EDS Indomitable and watched the stars. His ship was 2 kilometers of human engineering, bristling with weapons that the Galactic Council thought were toys. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations, monitoring the empty space of their assigned sector. It had been 3 weeks since the council meeting. 3 weeks of patrolling empty space while the galaxy's advanced civilizations handled the important work. Lee did not mind. He had served in enough wars to appreciate peace even if it came with insults. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Hai-Wan Kang from the communications station, "I am receiving multiple distress signals." Lee turned toward her. Kang was young but sharp, one of the best comm officers in the fleet. If she said something was important, it was worth hearing. "Put them through, Lieutenant." The bridge speakers crackled to life. Alien voices filled the air, speaking in different languages but all saying the same thing: fear, panic, desperation, Crimson Fleet attacking Sector 7. Massive casualties. Request immediate assistance. Colony ships destroyed. They came out of nowhere. Over 200 ships. Lee felt his stomach tighten. The Crimson Fleet was a legend in this part of space, a massive pirate armada that had terrorized trade routes for decades. Their leader, Warlord Krexmoth, was said to command more ships than some entire governments. "Commander Cho," Lee called to his tactical officer, "what do we know about these attacks?" Commander Soo-Jin Cho had been studying her displays since the first distress call. She was a former starfighter pilot who had earned her command through skill and courage. When she spoke, Lee listened. "The attack started 6 hours ago," she reported. "Multiple systems under assault simultaneously. The Crimson Fleet appears to be using coordinated strikes across 3 sectors. Galactic Council response? The Hegemony sent their 3rd battle group. Elite units, over 50 ships including 4 dreadnoughts." Cho paused, checking her data again. They were destroyed completely. No survivors. Lee felt cold. The Hegemony dreadnoughts were legendary. Each one could destroy an entire human fleet. If the Crimson Fleet had wiped them out completely, then this was not a normal pirate raid. "Sir?" Kang called out again. "I have Admiral Vorth of the Crystalline Defense Force. He is requesting immediate assistance." On screen, the view screen showed an alien that looked like living crystal, his surface cracked and dim. Behind him, Lee could see sparks and smoke. The alien's ship was clearly dying. "Human Admiral," Vorth said, his voice desperate. "You must help us. The Crimson Fleet has destroyed everything. My entire battle group is gone. They are heading for the refugee convoy in the Kepler system." Lee knew about the convoy. Over 2 million civilians fleeing war zones, protected by a few escort ships. They would be helpless against the Crimson Fleet. "How many ships are we facing?" Lee asked. "Over 200, Vorth replied. Their flagship alone is larger than anything in the Galactic Council fleet. They have weapons we have never seen before." The connection cut to static. Vorth's ship was gone. "Admiral," called Captain Jinwoo Han from the escort destroyer EDS Valiant. His voice came through the comm system from his own bridge. "Are we really going to fight 200 pirate ships with 12 human vessels?" Lee looked around his bridge. His crew was watching him, waiting for orders. They all knew the odds. They all knew what those odds meant. "Commander Cho," Lee said calmly. "Analysis of Crimson Fleet tactics?" Cho brought up a holographic display showing the battle data. "They use overwhelming numbers and superior firepower. Standard energy weapons, plasma cannons, and antimatter torpedoes. Their shields are designed to stop particle beams and energy bolts." "What about their flagship?" "The Dread Sovereign. 5 kilometers long, armed with planet-killer weapons. The Hegemony dreadnoughts could not even scratch its armor." Lee studied the display. The Crimson Fleet was everything the Galactic Council feared. A massive force with advanced weapons and no mercy. But they had one weakness they did not know about. "They have never fought humans before," he said quietly. "Sir?" Cho looked confused. "Their shields, their armor, their tactics, everything is designed to fight energy weapons. What happens when you hit energy-based armor with a solid projectile moving at high speed?" Understanding dawned in Cho's eyes. "It goes right through." "Exactly." Lee turned to the navigation station. "Set course for the Kepler system. Maximum speed." "Admiral." Han's voice came through the comm again. "We are outnumbered 17-1. "This is suicide," Lee smiled grimly. "Captain Han, the Galactic Council thinks we are primitive because we use kinetic weapons. Let us show them why humans conquered their own planet with sticks and stones." As the Indomitable and its escort fleet jumped to hyperspace, Lee thought about his conversation with Captain Kim. The aliens had laughed at human weapons, called them primitive toys. They were about to learn the difference between advanced and effective. The journey to Kepler took 4 hours. During that time, Lee received more distress calls. Colony after colony fell to the Crimson Fleet. Millions were dying while the galaxy's advanced military forces ran away or died, trying to stop an way. Enemy they could not understand, dropping. Out of hyperspace, announced the navigation. Officer dotted, the view screen showed the Kepler system. In the distance, Lee could see the refugee convoy, hundreds of ships carrying civilians to safety. Between them and freedom sat the Crimson Fleet, a wall of death over 200 ships strong. At the center of the fleet was the dread sovereign, Warlord Krexmoth's flagship. It was massive, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Around it, smaller ships moved like sharks in the water, hunting for prey. They are attacking the convoy, Cho reported. Civilian ships are being destroyed. Lee watched as pirate ships fired into the helpless convoy. Escape pods fled burning transports while fighters hunted them down for sport. Children were dying while he watched. Admiral, Kang said urgently. Incoming transmission from the Dread Sovereign. Put it through. The screen showed Warlord Krexmoth himself. The pirate leader was huge, covered in scars and cybernetic implants. His voice was like grinding metal. Human ships, Krexmoth said with amusement. I have heard about your species. The galaxy's newest children, playing with primitive toys. Turn around now and I will let you live to tell others about the power of the Crimson Fleet. Lee stepped forward so the alien could see him clearly. Warlord Krexmoth, I am Admiral Tae-Ho Lee of the Earth Defense Fleet. You are attacking innocent civilians. Stand down immediately. Krexmoth laughed, a sound like breaking bones. Innocent? There are no innocents in space, human. Only predators and prey. Your 12 little ships against my fleet. Which do you think you are? We did not come here to talk, Lee said calmly. We came here to stop you. Then you came here to die. Krexmoth's eyes gleamed with anticipation. I will keep your ships as trophies. The galaxy will know that even their newest members are no match for the Crimson Fleet. The transmission ended. Around them, 200 pirate ships began to turn toward the human fleet. Weapons powered up, shields activated, and fighters launched from carrier bays. Lee looked at his crew one last time. They were scared but ready. They had trained for this moment their entire careers. All ships, he announced over the fleet comm. This is Admiral Lee. Today we show the galaxy what humanity means. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. And when evil thinks it has won, we remind it that humans do not surrender. He paused, watching the enemy fleet approach. Today, the galaxy learns why Earth conquered itself with primitive weapons. Because in the end, it does not matter how advanced your technology is. What matters is whether you have the will to use it. The Crimson Fleet opened fire. Captain Dong-Soo Kim stood in the massive chamber and tried not to show his anger. Around him, creatures from hundreds of different worlds sat in floating chairs that moved through the air. Some had scales, others had fur, and many looked nothing like anything on Earth. They all stared down at him like he was a child who had wandered into an adult meeting. The Galactic Council chamber was bigger than any building Kim had ever seen. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above, and holographic displays showed star maps of the entire galaxy. 847 different species had seats here. Today, they were all talking about Earth. Ambassador Nari Park sat beside Kim at a small table in the center of the room. She had been a diplomat for 30 years, but even she looked uncomfortable. The aliens had been talking about humans for 3 hours now, and none of it was good. Look at their weapons, said High Chancellor Vextar, pointing a clawed finger at the holographic display. His reptilian face showed what humans would call a smile, but it was not friendly. They still use metal projectiles fired by chemical explosions. How primitive. The display showed human soldiers carrying rifles. Then it changed to show tanks rolling across a field. The aliens made sounds that Kim guessed were laughter. Some species clicked, others whistled, and a few made deep rumbling noises. Their space vessels are even worse, continued another alien with blue skin and 4 arms. They burn chemical fuel to move through space. Our ancestors stopped using such methods thousands of years ago. More laughter filled the chamber. Kim watched as the display showed Earth's newest warship, the EDS Indomitable. It was the pride of Earth's space fleet. over 2 kilometers long and armed with humanity's best weapons. To Kim, it looked powerful and deadly. To the aliens, it was apparently a joke. "This is their greatest warship," Vextar said, his voice full of mockery. "A flying pile of metal held together by hope and stupidity. Our smallest patrol ships could destroy it without effort." A creature that looked like a giant jellyfish floating in a bubble of water spoke next. Its voice came through a translator device. "Perhaps we should be grateful they are so weak. At least they cannot threaten anyone important." Kim felt his hands form fists under the table. He had served in the Martian Independence War, where he had seen good soldiers die fighting for freedom. He had commanded ships in battles that decided the fate of entire colonies. These aliens talked about his people like they were insects. Ambassador Park leaned toward her microphone. "Honorable Council members, Earth appreciates this opportunity to join the galactic community. We hope to learn from your advanced civilizations and contribute what we can." Her words were polite and careful, but many aliens were not even listening. Some were having their own conversations while others studied data tablets that probably had nothing to do with Earth. "Contribute?" Vextar's laugh was like the sound of breaking glass. "What could a species that still fights with gunpowder possibly contribute to civilized space?" The display changed again, showing human military exercises. Earth soldiers moved through a training course, working together like parts of a machine. Their movements were fast and precise, but the aliens only saw the primitive weapons. "Look how they coordinate," said a tall alien with 6 legs and crystal-like skin. "Like pack animals. No individual thought or creativity." "Their ships move in formations too," added another voice. "Probably because their computers are too simple to work alone." Kim had heard enough. He stood up slowly, his chair scraping against the metal floor. The sound echoed in the huge chamber and many conversations stopped. "Captain Kim," Ambassador Park whispered urgently, "please sit down." But Kim was already speaking. His voice was calm but carried clearly through the chamber. "You judge our weapons and ships by your standards. That is your mistake." Vextar's reptilian eyes focused on Kim. "A mistake? Please enlighten us with your human wisdom." "You see gunpowder and call it primitive," Kim said. "You see metal projectiles and laugh. But you do not ask the important question, which is..." Vextar's voice was full of fake interest. "Do they work?" The chamber fell quiet. Kim could feel hundreds of alien eyes watching him. "Your energy weapons are impressive," Kim continued. "Your gravity drives are beyond our understanding. But when our ancestors fought with sticks and stones, they asked one question: will this kill my enemy? Everything else was just details." A new alien spoke up, this one covered in what looked like living metal. "Are you threatening us, human?" Kim almost smiled. "No, I am explaining something you do not understand. You have had peace for so long that you have forgotten what war really means. We have the most advanced military forces in the galaxy," Vextar said, his voice rising. "Our hegemony fleet could destroy your entire planet in minutes." "Perhaps," Kim agreed. "But you would have to find us first. And you would have to catch us. And you would have to hit us." He paused, looking around the chamber. "Your weapons are designed to fight other energy weapons. Your shields stop plasma bolts and particle beams. But what happens when a simple piece of metal moving very fast hits your ship?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Kim sat down, his point made. Ambassador Park took over, her voice diplomatic and smooth. "Earth requests assignment to a sector where we can patrol and learn. We promise not to interfere with established trade routes or territories. The Council discussed this for another hour. They gave Earth a remote sector on the galaxy's edge, far from any important worlds. It was clearly meant to keep the humans out of the way, like giving a child a toy to keep them quiet." As the session ended, Vextar approached their table. His scaled face showed what Kim thought was amusement. "Captain Kim, your little speech was entertaining. But in space, primitive weapons mean nothing. The first time you face real enemy ships, you will understand how foolish your confidence is." Kim stood and looked the alien directly in the eye. "High Chancellor, I hope for everyone's sake that day never comes. But if it does, I think you will be surprised by what humans can do when we stop being polite." As the aliens filed out of the chamber, Kim pulled out his communication device. He sent a coded message to Admiral Tae-Ho Lee, commander of Earth's Deep Space Fleet. "Admiral, the Council has made their opinion of humanity very clear. They see us as children playing with toys. Perhaps it is time to show them that human toys can be very dangerous in the right hands. Park looked at Kim with worry in her eyes. What are you planning? Kim watched the last of the aliens leave the chamber. Nothing, Ambassador. But if the galaxy wants to test humanity, they should be careful what they wish for. We have a saying on Earth, it is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. Outside the chamber windows, stars twinkled in the darkness of space. Somewhere among them, human ships patrolled their new sector, waiting for orders. The galaxy had laughed at humanity today. Kim wondered if they would still be laughing tomorrow. The first energy blasts from the Crimson Fleet lit up space like deadly fireworks. Plasma bolts and particle beams reached across the darkness toward the human ships, their paths marked by brilliant trails of light. The refugees in their convoy watched in terror as 12 small human vessels faced an armada that had destroyed the galaxy's finest military forces. Admiral Lee stood calmly on the bridge of the Indomitable as enemy fire approached his fleet. Around him, his crew worked with practiced efficiency, their movements quick and sure despite the impossible odds. Evasive maneuvers, Lee ordered. All ships execute Formation Omega. The human fleet suddenly scattered in all directions, their ships moving in patterns that made no sense to the watching pirates. Instead of maintaining neat formations like proper military vessels, the human ships darted and weaved like animals avoiding a predator. What are they doing? Warlord Krexmoth demanded from his flagship. Those movements are completely random, but they were not random. Commander Sujin Cho smiled as she watched her tactical display. Formation Omega was something the human fleet had practiced for years. A coordination pattern based on Earth's pack-hunting techniques. To outside observers, it looked like chaos. To the human pilots, every movement was part of a larger plan. The pirate fleet's first volley missed completely. Energy blasts designed to hit ships moving in straight lines found only empty space where the human vessels had been moments before. Impossible, growled one of Krexmoth's captains. No ship can move like that, but human ships could. They had been designed by engineers who understood that space combat was three-dimensional warfare. Where alien vessels moved like ships on an ocean, human ships moved like fighters in the sky. Return fire, Lee commanded. The response from the human fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Instead of energy weapons, solid projectiles streaked across space at incredible speeds. Railgun slugs, guided missiles, and kinetic penetrators reached toward the pirate fleet faster than their sensors could track. The first impacts were devastating. Pirate ships designed to deflect energy blasts found their shields useless against solid matter, moving at relativistic speeds. Railgun slugs punched through armor like bullets through paper, while guided missiles danced around defensive fire with electronic minds of their own. Report, Krexmoth roared as 3 of his ships exploded in rapid succession. Their weapons are not energy-based, his tactical officer replied in confusion. Our shields cannot stop solid projectiles, and their missiles are adapting to our countermeasures. On the Indomitable, Dr. Young-Mi Seo monitored the battle from her science station. She had spent 5 years developing the systems that were now proving their worth. While the galaxy focused on energy weapons and exotic matter, human scientists had perfected the art of making simple things deadly. Admiral, she reported, Project Prometheus is ready for deployment. Lee nodded. Project Prometheus was humanity's greatest secret, the true nature of their warships. For months, human vessels had hidden their real capabilities, appearing primitive while concealing weapons that would have terrified the Galactic Council. All ships, Lee announced over the fleet comm. Remove safety restrictions. Full combat authorization. Across the human fleet, weapon systems that had been operating at minimal power suddenly came online. The Indomitable's main gun began charging, drawing energy from reactors that had been disguised as simple fusion plants. Around the fleet, missile tubes opened to reveal arsenals that seemed impossible for ships of their size. Captain Woo-Sung Park led his starfighter squadron out of the Indomitable's launch bay. His pilots flew ships that looked crude compared to alien fighters, but appearances were deceiving. Human fighters were designed for war, not for show. Phoenix Squadron, form up, Park commanded. Show them what human pilots can do. The fighters shot forward in a tight formation, their engines leaving trails of fire. But as soon as enemy weapons locked onto them, they scattered into individual attack patterns that seemed to have no logic at all. The pirate fighters tried to follow. But human pilots had trained in Earth's atmosphere, where gravity and air resistance made flying a deadly art. In space, without those limitations, they moved like gods of war. Park's fighter dove beneath a pirate ship and fired a burst from his kinetic cannon. The solid rounds tore through the alien vessel's hull, sending it spinning into another enemy ship. Around him, his squadron moved with precision that the enemy could not match. "How are they coordinating without radio communication?" demanded Krexmoth's fighter commander. The answer was something the aliens had mocked: human pack instincts. Each pilot knew where the others would be because they thought like parts of the same organism. They did not need constant communication because they understood each other on a level deeper than words. Captain So-Ra Jung commanded the stealth frigate EDS Shadow, a ship that the pirates could barely detect. While the main battle raged, she led her vessel through the enemy fleet like a knife in the dark. "Target the command ships," she ordered her weapons officer. "Cut off their coordination." The Shadow's weapons were different from the main fleet's guns. Instead of kinetic rounds, they fired specialized missiles designed to disrupt enemy communications and power systems. Each missile was guided by an artificial intelligence that could think faster than any organic brain. Pirate command ships began losing contact with their fleets as the Shadow's weapons found their targets. Ships that had been moving in coordination suddenly became individual vessels fighting their own battles. "We are losing fleet coordination," reported Krexmoth's communications officer. "Something is jamming our command frequencies. Find it and destroy it," the warlord roared. But finding the Shadow was like finding a ghost. Captain Jung had learned stealth techniques from Earth submarines, where hiding meant survival. Her ship moved through the battle like a predator, striking and vanishing before the enemy could respond. Meanwhile, the main human fleet continued its deadly dance around the Crimson Fleet. What had started as a battle between 200 pirate ships and 12 human vessels was becoming something else entirely. The pirates had superior numbers and more advanced technology, but they were fighting an enemy they did not understand. Human weapons ignored their defenses, human tactics confused their strategies, and human coordination made their fleet movements look clumsy by comparison. "Status report," Lee demanded. 15 enemy ships destroyed, Commander Cho reported. No human casualties. Enemy fleet is beginning to show confusion in their formations. Lee watched the tactical display as pirate ships tried to adapt to fighting an enemy unlike anything they had faced before. Some tried to ram the human ships, only to find that human vessels could accelerate and maneuver faster than anything their size had any right to. Others attempted to use overwhelming firepower, concentrating their entire fleet's weapons on single human ships. But the human vessels moved like living things, dodging and weaving through walls of enemy fire with grace that seemed impossible. "Admiral," Dr. Seo called out, "the Prometheus array is fully charged." Lee looked at the main display where the massive pirate flagship Dread Sovereign sat at the center of the enemy fleet. It was time to show the galaxy what human engineering could really accomplish. "Target the flagship," he commanded. "Prepare for main gun firing sequence." Around the bridge, his crew prepared for something that would change space warfare forever. The Indomitable had been built around a single weapon, a mass driver that could accelerate projectiles to speeds that turned simple metal into planet-killing force. "Main gun ready," reported the weapons. Officer Lee thought about the refugees cowering in their convoy, about the colonies already destroyed, about the galaxy that had laughed at humanity's primitive weapons. Fire. The Indomitable's main gun fired with the force of a dying star. The projectile was a simple piece of tungsten, no bigger than a person's fist. But when it left the ship's 2-kilometer-long mass driver, it was moving at 12% of light speed. At that velocity, the small piece of metal carried the kinetic energy of a nuclear bomb. The round took 3 seconds to cross the space between the human flagship and the Dread Sovereign. In those 3 seconds, Warlord Krexmoth watched the impossible happen. The projectile struck the pirate flagship's shields and passed through them like they were not there. Energy barriers designed to stop the most powerful plasma cannons could not even slow down a simple piece of metal moving fast enough to bend space around it. The tungsten round hit the Dread Sovereign's armor and punched completely through the ship. It entered through the front armor, traveled the entire 5-kilometer length of the vessel, and exited through the rear hull, leaving a perfectly round hole surrounded by molten metal. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the flagship's reactor, damaged by the passage of the projectile, exploded. The blast lit up the entire system. When the light faded, the most feared ship in 3 sectors was gone, replaced by an expanding cloud of debris and plasma. "Impossible," whispered Krexmoth's second-in-command from another ship. The Dread Sovereign was unsinkable, but it was gone, destroyed by a weapon the galaxy considered primitive. Admiral Lee watched the explosion fade and felt grim satisfaction. "All ships continue the attack. Show them what human weapons can really do." Across the human fleet, captains who had been holding back unleashed their full arsenals. The galaxy was about to learn why humans had conquered their homeworld with clubs and spears. Captain Minho Yu commanded the railgun cruiser EDS Thunder, a ship designed around the principle that simple weapons were often the most effective. His main batteries opened fire, sending streams of metal projectiles into the confused pirate fleet. Each round from Yu's guns was guided by artificial intelligence that could think faster than any living being. The missiles dodged defensive fire, adapted to countermeasures, and found weak points in enemy armor with deadly precision. "Target the heavy cruisers," Yu ordered his weapons officer. "Show them why mass times velocity equals death." The Thunder's guns spoke again, their projectiles reaching across space to tear through ships that had been considered invulnerable. Pirate vessels designed to survive the most advanced energy weapons found themselves helpless against chunks of metal moving at impossible speeds. Meanwhile, Sub-Commander Ji-Hoon Baek was leading something the galaxy had not seen in centuries: boarding operations. His teams used small assault ships to attach themselves to enemy vessels, then cut their way inside to fight hand-to-hand. "Breach successful," Beck reported as his team entered a pirate destroyer. "Beginning internal assault." The aliens inside the ship had never faced human soldiers in close combat. They carried elegant energy weapons designed for civilized warfare. The humans carried shotguns, assault rifles, and knives. The difference was immediately obvious. Human soldiers moved through the alien ship like apex predators. They worked as teams, covering each other's movements and advancing with tactics learned from centuries of warfare. The pirates, used to fighting ship-to-ship battles, had no answer for enemies who brought the battle inside their vessels. "Deck 3 secured," Beck reported as his team systematically cleared each section of the ship, proceeding to engineering. Back in the main battle, the pirates were learning another hard lesson about human warfare. The 12 ships of the human fleet moved with coordination that seemed impossible. Each vessel knew exactly where the others would be, what they would do, and how to support their actions. Commander Cho watched her tactical display with professional satisfaction. Formation Omega was working perfectly. The human ships moved through the enemy fleet like a pack of wolves, isolating targets and destroying them with overwhelming force. "Enemy fleet cohesion is breaking down," she reported to Admiral Lee. "They cannot adapt to our movement patterns." The pirates had trained to fight fleets that moved in neat formations and followed predictable tactics. The human fleet fought like a living organism, each ship acting as part of a larger mind. When one vessel was threatened, the others moved to protect it. When an opportunity appeared, the entire fleet struck like a single weapon. Captain Park's fighter squadron had destroyed over 30 enemy fighters without losing a single pilot. Human fighters moved with agility that seemed to violate the laws of physics, turning and accelerating in ways that should have crushed their pilots. "How are they surviving those maneuvers?" demanded the pirate fighter commander as he watched. "Human ships pull turns that generated 20 times Earth gravity." The answer was another human innovation: inertial dampeners that protected pilots from the crushing forces of high-speed combat. While alien fighters were limited by the fragility of their crews, human pilots could push their ships to the edge of destruction. Park lined up another target and fired. His kinetic cannon sent a stream of metal into an enemy fighter, tearing it apart in a shower of sparks and debris. "Phoenix Squadron, form up for attack run on the carrier," he commanded. The human fighters dove toward a massive pirate carrier that was launching more enemy ships. They moved in perfect formation, their pilots thinking as one mind while maintaining individual combat skills. The carrier's defensive guns opened fire, filling space with energy blasts designed to stop attacking fighters. But the human pilots flew through the barrage like they could see the future, dodging and weaving between death rays with supernatural skill. Park's squadron reached the carrier and released their missiles. Each weapon was guided by an artificial mind that analyzed the target, found its weaknesses, and struck with surgical precision. The carrier exploded from within as human. Missiles found its ammunition storage and reactor. Captain Jung's stealth frigate continued its deadly hunt through the battle. The Shadow had destroyed 6 command ships, cutting the pirate fleet's coordination to pieces. Enemy vessels that had fought as a unified force now struggled to communicate with each other. Target the supply ships, Jung ordered. Cut off their ability to resupply. The Shadow's specialized weapons reached out to destroy the vessels that kept the pirate fleet fighting. Without ammunition and fuel, even the most advanced warships became helpless targets. As the battle raged, the refugee convoy watched in amazement. The same species that the Galactic Council had mocked as primitive was systematically destroying the most feared fleet in known space. "Are you recording this?" asked the convoy commander. "Every second," replied his communications officer. "The galaxy will not believe what they are seeing." Warlord Krexmoth, now commanding from a heavy cruiser after the loss of his flagship, watched his fleet being torn apart by 12 human ships. His forces still outnumbered the humans 10-1, but numbers meant nothing when the enemy could not be hit and their weapons could not be stopped. "All ships, concentrate fire on the human flagship," he ordered desperately. "Destroy their command ship." 100 pirate vessels turned their weapons toward the Indomitable, filling space with enough firepower to crack a moon. Energy blasts reached across the darkness toward Admiral Lee's ship and missed completely. The Indomitable moved like a dancer, spinning and diving through the wall of enemy fire with grace that seemed impossible for a ship its size. Around it, the other human vessels continued their attack, their weapons reaching out to destroy enemies faster than the pirates could count. "Status report," Lee demanded. 67 enemy ships destroyed, Commander Cho reported. "Fleet integrity at 98%. Minor damage to the Valiant, but all systems operational." Lee nodded. The battle was going better than he had hoped, but it was not over yet. The pirates still had superior numbers, and desperate enemies were often the most dangerous. "All ships," he announced over the fleet comm. "Prepare for final assault. End this." The human fleet gathered itself for one last coordinated strike. They had shown the galaxy what human weapons could do. Now they would show what human determination meant. The pirates were about to learn why Earth's most feared predator was not the strongest or fastest creature on the planet. It was the one that never gave up. The final assault lasted only minutes, but those minutes changed the galaxy forever. The human fleet moved as one organism, their ships flowing through space with deadly purpose. Railgun rounds and guided missiles reached out to claim the last of the Crimson Fleet, while human fighters danced between enemy ships like angels of death. Warlord Krexmoth made his final stand aboard his remaining heavy cruiser, surrounded by the last dozen ships of his once mighty fleet. He had ruled 3 sectors through fear and overwhelming force. Now he faced an enemy that seemed to ignore both. "All ships ramming speed," he commanded. "If we cannot defeat them, we die with honor." But even that final desperate act failed. The human ships simply moved aside, their pilots reading the enemy's intentions before the aliens fully formed them. The pirate vessels crashed into empty space while human weapons found their targets with surgical precision. The last ship of the Crimson Fleet died in silence, its wreckage joining the debris field that had once been the galaxy's most feared pirate armada. Admiral Lee stood on his bridge and watched the battle's end. Around him, his crew worked quietly to secure their weapons and assess damage. After facing odds of 17-1, the human fleet had suffered only minor injuries and no casualties. "Fleet status," Lee requested. "All ships operational," Commander Cho reported. "Total enemy vessels destroyed, 214. Human casualties, 0. Lee nodded and opened communications to the refugee convoy. "This is Admiral Lee of the Earth Defense Fleet. The threat has been eliminated. You are safe to proceed to your destination." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Hundreds of alien voices filled the communication channels, expressing gratitude in dozens of languages. Many could not believe what they had witnessed. 12 primitive human ships destroying a fleet that had terrorized the galaxy for decades. Within hours, news of the battle spread across known space faster than light itself. The same communication networks that had carried news of humanity's mockery at the Galactic Council now carried something very different. Captain Dong-Soo Kim, now promoted to admiral and serving as Earth's military representative, stood before an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The chamber was packed, with representatives from species that had never shown interest in human affairs before. High Chancellor Vextar, the same alien who had mocked human weapons just weeks earlier, spoke in a voice that carried none of its previous arrogance. Admiral Kim, Vextar said carefully, the Council has reviewed the battle recordings from the Kepler system. We must admit that we underestimated human military capabilities. Kim kept his expression neutral. Around him, aliens who had laughed at humanity now watched him with something approaching fear. The Council appreciates Earth's intervention, continued another representative. The Crimson Fleet had been a threat to peaceful commerce for over 50 years. No military force had been able to stop them. Until now, Kim replied simply. The chamber fell silent. Every being present understood the implications. If humans could destroy the Crimson Fleet with 12 ships, what could they do with their full military strength? Ambassador Nari Park, sitting beside Kim, leaned toward her microphone. Earth values its membership in the Galactic Council. We hope this incident demonstrates our commitment to protecting innocent life. Indeed, Vextar agreed quickly. The Council would like to discuss expanding Earth's patrol responsibilities. Several sectors have requested human protection after hearing about the battle. Kim almost smiled. 3 weeks ago, these same aliens had assigned humanity to a remote sector to keep them out of the way. Now they were begging for human protection. Earth will consider all requests, Kim replied diplomatically. The session continued for hours as representatives who had ignored humanity suddenly competed to offer alliance treaties, technology sharing agreements, and defense contracts. The galaxy's attitude toward Earth had changed completely. Meanwhile, Admiral Lee and his fleet had returned to Earth's orbital shipyards. The Indomitable and its escorts underwent maintenance while their crews received well-deserved leave. But more importantly, the shipyards began working around the clock to build more vessels like them. Dr. Youngmi Seo stood in her laboratory reviewing the battle data. Project Prometheus had succeeded beyond her wildest expectations. The galaxy's energy-based weapons and defenses were useless against kinetic projectiles. Moving at relativistic speeds, the other species will adapt eventually, she told Admiral Lee during his visit to the research facility. They will develop defenses against our weapons, Lee nodded. But by then we will have developed new weapons. The advantage of being primitive is that people underestimate what you can do. President Kyung-Hwa Shin addressed the United Nations from her office in Seoul, speaking to a world that had suddenly become the center of galactic attention. 3 months ago, alien civilizations discovered Earth and invited us to join their community, she said. They saw us as children playing with toys. Today, those same civilizations understand that humanity brings something unique to the galaxy. The willingness to stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. She paused, looking directly into the camera. We did not seek conflict, but we will not run from it. We did not ask to be the galaxy's protector, but we will not abandon that responsibility. Humanity has learned that with great power comes great responsibility, and we will honor that lesson among the stars. The speech was broadcast across human space and beyond, carried by alien news networks to civilizations that had never heard of Earth before the Kepler battle. 6 months later, the changes were visible everywhere. Human patrol fleets moved through sectors that had once been plagued by pirates and raiders. The mere presence of ships bearing Earth's insignia was enough to make criminals think twice about their actions. The EDS Indomitable now led a joint species task force, with alien ships serving alongside human vessels. The arrangement worked because the aliens had learned to respect human tactical doctrine and weapons technology. Captain Park, promoted to squadron commander, trained alien pilots in human combat techniques. The lessons were difficult. Alien minds struggled to understand the pack coordination that came naturally to humans, but the results were impressive. Captain Young's stealth techniques had been adapted by several alien navies, though none matched the effectiveness of human operators. The ability to think like a predator, it seemed, could not be easily taught to species that had evolved as prey. The Galactic Council chambers looked very different now. Earth's delegation sat at a table near the center of the room, with representatives from major powers seeking their advice on military matters. The remote corner table where humans had once been Ignored was now occupied by minor species still adjusting to the new galactic order. Ambassador, Park stood to address the council during a debate about piracy in the Outer Rim territories. Honorable colleagues, she began. Earth proposes expanding the Joint Patrol Program to include the disputed sectors. Our analysis suggests that criminal organizations are regrouping in areas currently beyond Council jurisdiction. Her proposal was approved unanimously. No one wanted to risk having their space become a target for the kind of criminal activity that the Crimson Fleet had represented. High Chancellor Vextar approached Park after the session ended. The proud reptilian leader who had once mocked humanity now spoke with genuine respect. Ambassador Park, I must make a confession. When Earth first joined the Council, my people believed you were inferior because you had not transcended the need for violence. We have learned that sometimes violence is necessary to protect peace. Park nodded graciously. High Chancellor, every species contributes something unique to the galactic community. Earth's contribution appears to be the knowledge that sometimes the best way to preserve civilization is to be prepared to defend it. As the months passed, the galaxy settled into its new reality. Trade routes that had been plagued by pirates for decades became safe passages. Colony worlds that had lived in fear began to prosper. The mere knowledge that human warships were patrolling nearby was enough to deter most criminal activity. But perhaps the most significant change was in how the galaxy viewed conflict itself. The idea that problems could be solved through overwhelming force applied with precision and coordination was revolutionary to species that had relied on negotiation and compromise for millennia. Admiral Lee, now commanding the largest fleet in human history, stood on the bridge of the Indomitable as it patrolled the outer sectors. His ships moved in perfect formation, their crews ready for whatever threats might emerge from the darkness between stars. Admiral, called Lieutenant Kang from her communication station, we are receiving a distress call from the Andorian system. Unknown raiders attacking civilian targets. Lee smiled grimly. The galaxy was a big place, and there would always be those who preyed on the innocent. But now there were also those willing to stop them. Set course for Andorian, he commanded. Maximum speed. As the human fleet jumped to hyperspace, Lee reflected on how much had changed since that day in the council chambers when aliens had laughed at humanity's weapons. They had learned the hard way that it was not the sophistication of the weapon that mattered, but the will of the person wielding it.